6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. And if you would, let's stand for our prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Chandler Ragland of the Black Mountain United Methodist Church is going to have our, there you are. I saw you in here earlier. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here this evening.
Absolutely. Let us pray. Almighty God, we are so thankful for this beautiful mountain community that we get to call home. We're thankful for the people, the places, the businesses, the institutions that continue to bring it so much life. Your blessings are truly all around us everywhere we look. Lord, we also give thanks for the people who you have called to be our leaders in this community. And so we pray that you would bless them and guide them in their work. Grant them your spirit of wisdom to do what is right and true. Grant them your spirit of compassion that they would listen for the needs of all people, and grant them your spirit of grace that they might pursue what is good and pleasing to you. This we pray in the name of our Lord. Amen.
Pledge allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. I'm going to share a conflict statement that we're going to start making a part of our monthly meeting, just incorporating it in. So there's two things. It's a conflict statement, but then it also informs the public, perhaps hopefully in a better way, a good way, that board members have an obligation to vote unless basically it's a financial interest in any item that comes before the board, council, by not only the council member, or it also involves a member of their direct family. And so, or close business associates. And so, in accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the council, all council members have a duty to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner, free of conflicts and interest. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any council member, his or her family, or close business associates? And that's a question to council. Or does any council member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before council today? And so if you're aware of them now, you can disclose it. If it comes to your attention during the board meeting, you can disclose it too. There being none, if there are no conflicts, then all board members have an obligation to vote on any item coming before council this evening. So with that said and done, we're going to move along, and Chief Parker has a life-saving award that he is going to present today. Or two.
Yes, two.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you.
Try to speak into the microphone. So I'm here today, thankfully, to be able to give two life-saving awards. It's good every once in a while to be able to praise some of the good things that happen on a daily basis in law enforcement. On April 1st, I was notified by Sergeant Gray, who informed me that two officers had performed a life-saving procedure. On April 1st, 2022, at 3 in the morning, we were dispatched out to a location in reference to a male subject that had overdosed. Officer Presley first arrived, and she immediately took control of the scene, administered Narcan, and the subject did not respond. He was still unresponsive. Second Officer Sam Stone arrived and then administered a second dose of Narcan, still with no luck, unresponsive. So they then started immediately performing CPR, doing sternum rubs, and then a third dose of Narcan was administered, and the patient was revived. He fully recovered. EMS was able to talk and walk with him. Unfortunately, the subject, again, was a drug user. He declined EMS and left walking the residents. But what I wanted to do is, since he's not giving them the thanks that they deserve, I wanted to make sure that we as a community thank them for what they did. And so today we're going to give them both a life-saving award and thank them for the great work that they did. Well, first we'll give you this while he's getting that. That's a thank you. That's a
You'll come over and shake council members' hands, that'd be great while you're getting your equipment out.
Hello, brother.
So you can tell these are fresher ones.
Thank you so much.
I didn't know I'd make you struggle like that.
I didn't know.
Neither did I.
Thank you.
Hold on one second.
Would you guys stand?
Stay. Can you get a picture of us too? Come on up there. Second there. Thanks. Good job. Good job.
And Chief Parker is going to provide a little, a short, brief to the point public safety update. We thought it would be helpful for council, just given the events of the past couple of weeks, and these, live shootings and so forth, just to make the town aware of our capabilities and how these things would be addressed.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to take a quick moment to speak about the tragic events of Uvalde, Texas on May 24th. Although I don't have the answers to what and why things happened the way they did in Uvalde, on the surface, without all the facts, it appears some things should have been handled differently. I don't want to speculate on what happened or point fingers, only comment on Black Mountain PD and what would be our response if a situation were to occur. At Black Mountain Police Department, we have 2 certified state train-the-trainers in rapid deployment and active shooter. We have 1 officer trained by the state in protection for houses of worship. Each horrible active shooter event in law enforcement training has responses that have evolved. When Columbine, the standard was wait for SWAT teams who had the skills, the special weapons and tools to address those threats. That changed after that event, and the training went to wait on 2, 3, and 4-man teams that were on patrol. Since Parkland, that changed. The response changed again to first arriving officer immediately and rapidly addressing the threat. Since Parkland, the training has been stop the killing, stop the dying, and I will add, or die trying. A couple of things that Black Mountain Police Department has done is partnered with Buncombe County with their Fuchsias Center application to aid in a faster, more coordinated response to incidents. This application, which is on the phone, allows officers to see public areas of the school where they have cameras in place and to respond in real time with a person who is monitoring it live from a feed in a room at Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. That person's able to coordinate with us as we're responding to the scene to know where the threat might be if there was a threat. That could save seconds or minutes in response time, which could save lives. Only 2 counties in the state of North Carolina have this technology. Buncombe County also supplies an SRO to our schools, in which we have a great working relationship. We are in current development of a very, very detailed after action and response plan on events like this if they should occur. From my experience and knowledge, the real chaos in these events is after the event took place. Again, During the event, our plan is simple: stop the killing, stop the dying, or die trying. We have conducted training in the schools for quick response and continue to plan and coordinate with the schools for more training. For oversight of our plans, response, and training, we've invited North Carolina League of Municipalities to conduct a risk review of our policies and actual procedures to take place on July 1st. That is with the policies. They are coming at the end of July to do an on-site review to make sure it's not just pieces of paper that we have, but we're actually doing what we say we're going to do. This is to make sure that we follow best practices and procedures in law enforcement. We have scheduled to become one of the smallest agencies to become state accredited in July of 2023. This process usually takes 3 years. We are hoping to have it carried out in a year and a half. All of our employees have taken NIMS training and ICS training. That's National Incident Management and Incident Command training. To wrap this up, we will continue to evaluate and educate ourselves on where we can become better and more proficient. Over the next year, we'll look at the possibilities of adding breaching tools in each car and possible funding sources and resources for a special response vehicle for large-scale issues. Again, I don't want a Monday morning quarterback, but these events seem to be becoming a daily norm. Law enforcement continues to evolve while being placed in difficult life or death situations on a daily basis. I've had the difficult discussion in front of my wife with our son, who is a deputy just below Charlotte, North Carolina. We've discussed, wouldn't he rather die trying than to live knowing he didn't do all he could do to save lives? I want to say, as a chief, I have the utmost confidence in our staff that we're prepared as we can be if an event like this should take place. Never has any of these types of events not come with some learning on how to deal with the unexpected. We do currently have MOUs in place with all law enforcement agencies in Buncombe County for coordinated response to any incidents needing large-scale attention. I want to thank you for council and the public's time, and if there's any questions, I'm more than willing to answer.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your time and your report. Council, any questions for Chief?
I have a quick question. First of all, thank you so much for your report and your leadership and keeping our community safe, and for all of the officers who have been their commitment to Black Mountain. You and I have spoken about this privately, which I appreciate, but I was wondering if you could speak about what the community should do should they see an alarming post on Facebook, or if they hear something through the grapevine at school or something like that, or a kid comes home and reports something to the parents. And then on top of that, once that gets to you, how the department handles situations like that.
So thank you very much for that question. See something, say something. Bottom line, if there's something concerning, we can't do it by ourselves, and oftentimes we don't know. So one is, if anybody in the community feels that there's something that's of concern, let us be judge of that. Don't hesitate to call us. That's what we're here for. Number two is, we take all concerns seriously, and based upon the evidence or the totality of circumstances presented to us, we can't do everything, but if we have something that shows of significant concerns, we will deal with the SBI. So we have our investigators, and SBI has a particular unit that deals particularly in threats, large-scale threats that could be carried out to communities or schools. So we would then use additional resources to make sure that we're addressing it in the best possible way.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Great. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
service and those of your officers. Public comment. Roger Register. Just given the name, but your address would be great.
Sure. Roger Register, 43 Mandolin Drive, Black Mountain, North Carolina. I'm here just to speak briefly. We understand that the North Carolina Department of Transportation will be giving a presentation on possibly some plans, road plans or changes within the community here. And representing the non-South townhomes, which is a residence of 30 families. I just wanted to express some concerns we've had with the section of the road, Highway 9 South, from the village of Cheshire up to Christmont there, which is a straight section coming down off of the mountain. Commercial vehicles such as dump trucks and other heavy equipment use that road quite a bit with the ongoing construction. And they're using their engine brakes, which if you're within 10 feet or less of some of those homes are of the road, it is very, very loud, very disruptive to the families that live along Highway 9 there on both sides of the highway. And I guess what I'd like to make a suggestion is that the town council here look at some an ordinance such as what Chimney Rock and Lake Lure have done that expressly prohibits the use of engine brakes within the city limits. I think it would improve the environment for all residents, not just those that live on Highway 9, but throughout Black Mountain, if we had an ordinance put in place that would prohibit the use of engine brakes by semi-trucks, dump trucks, and other big equipment like that. Again, it's not only a noise issue, it's really affecting those individuals who live on that road. There's a lot of traffic with the new construction that's going on up in the mountain area there. And I'm just here to request the council to consider that, as well as enforcing the speed limit on that section of the road. I believe it's currently at 35, but I don't think 90% of the vehicles really do 35. They're coming down off the hill from Christmont, and it's 50, 60 miles an hour all the way into the village of Cheshire, all the way into Ingalls there. So again, just those two issues we'd like to see the council take some action on. And in closing, I would like to say thanks to the council for the hard work they did with the state DOT, as well as local representatives, to put the signage up to stop the trucks from semi-trucks from getting stuck in the switchbacks of Highway 9. I know that took a lot of effort by a number of members to get that done, but it's really helped. We don't have road blockage like we used to have. And just something similar to that would really help with the noise as well. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Judd Doherty.
Good afternoon, evening, council members. I'm Judd Doherty, chairman of the Black Mountain Library.
He's gonna go in a few minutes.
I think that's library board report.
Oh, you just signed up for comments? Let's finish public comments. You signed up for public comments, so we've got you on the agenda later. Or did you have a public comment to make?
No, sir, it all pertains to the library.
Okay, great. We'll give you another shot at it. How about that? Sean Sloan.
Sean Sloan, 115 3rd Street. I'd like to read a poem tonight by Joyce Kilmer and dedicate it to Bill Allen and all his enablers. Trees. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against this earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Mayor Harris, I have one more that came in.
Okay.
Under comments, and this would be from Nancy Ramsey, 11 Mandolin Drive. I write, as a resident of Black Mountain, I live year-round in 9 South Townhome neighborhood, We neighbors have tried unsuccessfully to get adequate monitoring of speeding on Highway 9 as drivers get past Cheshire and head east out of town or come down the mountain and into the city limits going past Crossmount, Loma Vista, and 9 South. We have witnessed hazardous speeding on a regular basis and even occasional drag racing, as well as heavy construction trucks often going well beyond the speed limit. Speeding on this section of Highway 9 is the norm. However, we do not receive adequate police presence to monitor the speeding. We requested speed monitors. However, in the past, these monitors were always placed in locations that were just beyond the stretch where speeding is frequent. I urge you to assure the police address speeding on this dangerous section of Highway 9. That's it.
Great, thank you. Now, Judd, we are now ready for the report from the Black Mountain Library Board.
Okay.
And you need not give your address. You can if you want to, but you don't have to.
I've been trying to catch up with you guys all spring to let you know things are going well at the library. We have a 6-member board. Currently, we only have 5 members. This past year, we had 2 of our longtime members retire, and the board would like to recognize Miss Carol Tyson for many years of service to the library board. She helped us in countless ways. Also, the board would like to recognize your very own Ron Sneed, who has served on our board for in excess of 30 years.
Couple of years.
And Ron, it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you. Thank you so much for your professional guidance. You made us a better board, and we appreciate it. We still got you on speed dial.
Okay.
I was informed that the board or the council would like to inquire as to the library board. And so now I stand ready to report to you as to our business. I thought you had questions.
Well, does anybody have a question?
Well, first off, I want to tell you how much I appreciate, and I think we all appreciate the work you do to make sure our library facility is spiffy. And
It's a team effort.
It's a team
Thank you
effort,
very
I'm
much.
sure, but it's been going on for decades. And Ron, is it 36 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. You know, that's just an amazing thing that,
Too dumb to leave.
well, and Mrs. Tyson as well. You know, it's a really important feature of our community. I'm grateful that you do that work.
Thank you.
So the question that I asked at a previous meeting, I think is what you've heard that I was interested in. Just because I'm a newbie on this, or I guess I don't get to say that forever, but you know, all our other boards and commissions, we get applications and we appoint members, and there's like a 3-year term of service and a job description. And so I was just curious, how does that work with the library board? And so that's,
Yes, ma'am. Recruitment is somewhat informal. When we have vacancies, we do now, we recruit from patrons in the community, seek out individuals interested in the library and working with us. Which I thank you very much for bringing this to my attention. We do have a new member now, and I need to introduce his nomination to you at this time. But we recruit from the community and then ask the individual if they would be interested in working with us, and then we'll bring their nomination to you. Generally, it's considered a 2-year appointment, but in actuality, it's kind of by mutual consent, indefinite appointment. Our board members are,
well, it must be tough to recruit if you have to tell them it's a 36-year commitment. It's a life sentence. But, I mean, I'm thrilled that you have been keeping the board going and you've gotten new members and so on. I was just wondering if we might want to make it a little more structured and official process along the lines of the other boards and commissions we use. But
Did you find bylaws? Did I read in some email exchange that you're looking for the bylaws?
We researched a charter,
Uh-huh,
and there was this is the 50th anniversary of the library building, or the library as in the current
right,
location. And so we're doing a little background search. There was a charter from the town of Black Mountain, but it was fairly vague. It was not signed and it was not dated. So we just kind of had to read between the lines on that. We did develop just this spring a statement of purpose for what the library does. As you know, the county operates the library. The town of Black Mountain maintains the facility, and that's the board's primary job, is to keep the lights on. And
right.
the town does provide us with a budgetary amount that we can use to, in one sense, in one case, we put a roof on the building, but to contend with routine maintenance as well, electric and plumbing.
Let me ask, if I could, maybe ask our town attorney here, help us kind of frame what we have. We have a separate corporate, not-for-profit corporation.
No.
We do not.
No, you just have a town appointment. Historically, as one or two of us remember, the town of Black Mountains Library started upstairs in what's now the museum. And then a little over 50 years ago,
It started in the Presbyterian Church.
it may have, but at that point, the town operated, the town bought the books, and I don't know if Dottie got paid or not. And then you built the library and actually operated the library there until the mid-80s. And then the library became part of PAC, and it had a board, and the existing board is basically a carryover from the time when the town had a group that raised all the money and operated the library. And nothing was ever, this board was not created like any other town board. There was no ordinance creating it. It was part of the agreement. You just sort of slid into it, the same group of people being replaced over time, and has maintained the board. But tonight, you've also got from what Judge is referring to as the agreement with the county in the 80s, that we reached a point where apparently there was an agreement, and whether it got signed or not, we can't find a signed copy. But the town's preferred way to do it is the way it's been operating, and you have an agreement before you tonight to start considering a lease agreement on how the relationship between the county and the town board operates. And that was not intended to create anything new or be a forward-looking document, but basically document what forgot to be signed
Right.
40 years ago.
So would we, back to Council Member King's question and comment, would it be the board has the authority to structure this along the lines of what we do with other committees? That's a question,
I think
Ron.
that would be.
That's a
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
Ron. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, it's all right.
I thought you
I was
wanted
trying to make.
The board has that authority, and down the road, if we continue to operate in this fashion with an appointed board to maintain the library.
Right. That might be helpful.
It might
helpful thing to.
we
Yes,
might
sir.
at least let the board create it and appoint the present sitting members.
That's right.
and carry on.
That's right. That's right. You can serve 30-some years if you want to. I guess, with council's direction, we could task the town attorney to kind of start that process and work with you all, your board, and to kind of bring it in under the umbrella of the rest of our committees. How does that sound?
In other words, make us legitimate.
Well, that's one way to say it.
One way to look at it.
But you're gonna have to work with the town attorney if you can handle that.
And one other,
Certainly.
one other question, so I know that we allocate money every year for the maintenance of the building,
Yes,
correct? At what point do we get some kind of reporting around that? Do we do that at an annual meeting here, or in terms of how that money was spent?
In my time on the library board, we have not done that. I think that's a capital idea. I think that's a great thing for providing that to you in a timely fashion.
Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
You know, what would happen, and of course, you know, the town attorney will work through it. It would get to the point where if you are operating just like any other committee or that we have,
Yes, sir.
then you know, the maintenance of the building will just be built into our budget as opposed to transferring funds into your checking account.
So historically, in my short term on that board, the town paid its $1,000, which is the same now as it was 30-some years ago. And the library board hoarded it. And when it needed a $25,000 heat pump or a $36,000 roof, it was just done. And past administrations have liked that process where they know their budget is $12,000 a year. If anything breaks, it will be fixed. But we can address that and
Yeah.
look at that accounting.
So
It's
council,
been
is
a
that
pretty
agreeable to
efficient system.
everybody? Agreeable to everybody? That's great. That sounds good, Judd. We'll have you back in here sometime to do a big handoff. We'll have a party.
Sounds like I'll spend more time with you tomorrow night than I planned.
We'll see you then. Yeah, and I thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Judd.
Judd.
We
Thank you,
appreciate
Judd.
it. Thanks for all your work. Metropolitan Sewer District Annual Report, Bob Watson.
Well, annual could be a question there.
Try, what is every 3 years?
Try it.
So anyhow, greetings from the MSD board. Thank you for allowing me to represent the town on that board. As we just laughed about, the last 3 or 4 years has been strange because of COVID. We did a period of time in which we were Zoom. We've done a period of time in which we're half Zoom and half in person. We have canceled meetings. So sometimes when you get, and I don't know, Josh gets a report of how many meetings I attended, you know, I had to remind them that they needed to put in there that they canceled too, you know. But anyhow, the board has changed over the last couple of years. We now have 14 members. 2 members have been included from Henderson County because we took over the Cane Creek area. It remains a very diverse board, a very easy board to sit on because there's very seldom any controversy or anything like that. The 2 members from Henderson County are Bill Lapsley, who's I think chairman of the county commissioners over there, and Sheila Franklin. I don't know Sheila other than I think she grew up in the Robbinsville district. We have passed the first reading of our budget at $59.8 million. I assume that final reading will be done on Wednesday. That's a 0.25% increase over last year. The rate will be increased by 3% this year. We've been at 2.5% for a long time. We had no increase the year before last, 2.75% last year, and it'll be 3% this year. Again, the budget is $59.8 million. $30 million of that will be in capital improvement. And Josh and I serve on that committee together, and that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. MSD has a pipe rating schedule, and they look at sanitary overflows, which are overflows that end up in the creek. And over the years, we've dropped that from probably 150 down to 12 to 15 a year. It has been a major emphasis. We look at calls on a particular stretch of sewer line. We also have the ability to picture and camera sewer lines. And we've got some sewer lines that are 100 years old that happen to be in good solid clay base that are in perfect shape. You know, we've got some other sewer lines that are clay. We've got some that are oddball material that have to be replaced. But anyhow, MSD looks at this at a 10-year program. And this is a capital improvement program from 2023 to 2032. And this lists the projects that we will be working on over the next 10 years. They're not absolutely in stone. The one project for Black Mountain will start on Pine Street and go down to Oakland Street. There's kind of a weird, they've done some things to get around some houses, to do some things. If that's convenient for the town at the time, then that's probably when it will be done. There are places in Asheville in which MSD was planning a sewer line, City of Asheville was planning a water line, and obviously we agreed to do them at the same time, so we paved the road once, you know. But I think the concept of a 10-year plan is a good idea. And if you've got any questions, let me know.
Questions for Bob? When is the work in Black Mountain scheduled? What year?
3 or 4 years from now, yeah. So I think there's plenty of time.
Yeah.
It's not long, I'll look that up, so, yeah, Josh has got the,
I got a copy of that.
yeah, yeah.
Anyone?
And again, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to represent the town
Yes,
on
thank
that
you.
board.
Thank you for your service.
Thank
Bob.
you for doing it.
Thank you, Bob. He's done a good job.
And we have Hannah Cook from the North Carolina Department of Transportation is gonna
Yes, we're here. I'm also,
talk to us.
I'm co-presenting with Steve Cannon.
Hey, Steve, come on up. Just everyone who's speaking, just speak into the microphone there, it'd be good. Welcome, we appreciate y'all coming out.
Good evening, Mayor Harris, council members. We appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you this afternoon. We want to speak about the proposed project on US 70 just east here of Black Mountain, and we do have a PowerPoint presentation. So we'll show a few images as we go.
All right, we'll get that pulled up. You want to get it pulled
Absolutely.
up before you start?
Sure, sure.
Putting a little pressure on the town clerk here, but that's okay.
She's got it.
I do this too regularly.
Yeah, she can handle it. All right.
Okay, next slide, please. So this evening, we want to talk about the overview of the proposed project on US 70, a little bit of a background on that proposed project, and then I'm going to transition over to Hannah. She'll discuss a little bit of our DOT project prioritization, what the options may be in the next couple of years, and then we'll take questions and comments on that. Thank you. Thank you. So a little bit of the background, the overview first. So as everyone here knows, US 70, as it comes through Black Mountain, is the predominant transportation feature. It actually travels through town here. And as you come off of I-40 and come in the westbound, you come off the ramp, you go to a 4-lane divided, and then you transition to a 3-lane. And it's a pretty quick transition. A lot of issues with speed coming into that area. And then you're immediately in downtown. The traffic capacity on that roadway, well, the traffic volumes have held steady since 2002 at about 8,000 cars a day on average. Capacities for the 4-lane divided, that 4-lane divided section can actually handle about 32,000 vehicles a day. The other section, the 2-lane, can handle about, as you see there, 17,400 vehicles a day. So as you can see, there's plenty of capacity on the roadway. I know we see a little bit of congestion here in the middle of town at certain times, but as you're approaching town, there's plenty of capacity on that highway. Some background is back in 2009, French Broad River MPO did a US 70 corridor study in Buncombe County. And one of the recommendations after public engagement and involvement on this study, there was a recommendation for 2 roundabouts in this section of highway we were just discussing. One's at Flat Creek, Old 70 and 70, and the other one's at Pagettown Road, Old 70 and 70. And in the section of road that would be between those 2 roundabouts would be a single lane in each direction. So you'd have a reduction in the number of lanes with the idea this is a traffic calming measure to slow that traffic down before we enter the town limits. The project would complement other projects in the area. So not just looking at this as a standalone project, but looking at it as your overall plan for the town. These, as you'll note there, we have currently unfunded projects, but they are on the radar, if you will. One is the proposed Fonta Flora Trail along US 70, going back to the east towards Yates Avenue. And the other one is a proposed road dot on US 70 from Blue Ridge Road back east to town at NC 9, the 4-lane section. And what that would involve is, you'll see there before and after photos, drawings there, if you will. Currently, we have 2 lanes in each direction. That would be reduced to 1 lane in each direction with a center turn lane, and using the remaining space on the outside for bicycle lanes. And again, the volume capacity there worked quite well, for that type of treatment. Additional background is there's also a Greenway. That's one of the local government programs, PLAT program. It's been divided into 2 sections, A and B. I think that was just done this past winter to split that into 2 sections. And basically carries you from Flat Creek and it takes you south down to the Oak connector. And so that's going to cross US 70 at some location here. And I understand Michael Baker, engineering, is working for you on that, doing the design on that. The traffic calming would assist with that as well, as far as reducing the speeds coming into those areas where you do have a Greenway crossing. So the basic idea with the 2009 corridor study was to produce a safer entryway into the town, and something that would still handle the traffic needs of the town. Okay.
So I want to talk about the funding part of how all these improvements actually get implemented. So I just want to start, make sure everybody's aware with NCDOT project prioritization, just give you an overview of that process, make sure you understand what I'm talking about before I dive into next steps. So the Strategic Transportation Investment, known as the STI law, was passed in 2013, and that directs the Department of Transportation to allocate available revenues based on a data-driven scoring process that also involves local input, and that process is known as prioritization. So under the STI law, all of our major capital projects, so mobility or expansion projects as well as modernization projects across all 6 modes of transportation, not just highway projects, have to compete for funding. So this is separate from our maintenance projects or capital projects. So the prioritization process is then used to develop the State Transportation Improvement Program, also known as a STIP. We love our acronyms. And the STIP identifies projects that will actually receive funding during a 10-year period. So how it actually works is the NCDOT highway divisions, there's 14 of us across the state, we're Highway Division 13. Metropolitan planning organizations and rural planning organizations across the state submit projects to be evaluated or scored through the prioritization process. So the French Broad River MPO is a partnership. I know Steve mentioned it, but I just wanted to cover, for those of you that aren't familiar with what that is, it's a partnership between local and state government that makes decisions about transportation planning in the urbanized areas of Buncombe, Henderson, Madison, Haywood, and Transylvania counties. So Black Mountain is one of 22 local governments that are included in the French Broad River MPO planning area. So the MPO is allocated 25 submittals for each round of prioritization, but since there's 22 local governments, 25 submittals don't go very far. The individual highway divisions also get an additional 14 submittals per mode of transportation. So now that I've covered, clicker stopped working, there we go. What prioritization is, I want to talk to you about our previous round of prioritization and then our upcoming round of prioritization and kind of what we're proposing. So based on the safety data for the corridor and the recommendations that were in that 2009 study that Steve covered, the Highway Division, Division 13, submitted a roundabout at the intersection of Charlotte Street and US 70. So you can see it's that kind of pink dot there. And so this is a different location than what was Pagettown Road. Essentially, we knew at the division and really at the MPO as well that there was going to be little funding availability for P6.0, which was in the 2020 timeframe. We knew there would be little funding availability for new projects, and we knew that smaller intersection level projects would have a better shot at being funding as opposed to a larger corridor project that tend to have higher costs. And so the Charlotte Street intersection is where you guys are familiar with US 70, but that is where it transitions to that 3-lane section from the 4-lane divided. And so we felt that a roundabout project, specifically at Charlotte Street, could still accomplish the same traffic calming measures, as well as we're confident could be mostly constructed entirely within the existing right-of-way, with minimal pavement working revisions to tie in the alignments east and west of that intersection. So that's kind of why we, in P 6.0, which was a submittal in March of 2020, why we went with that scope as opposed to what was proposed in that study. And so just a status on that, in fall of 2021, the NC Board of Transportation decided to halt the P6 process. There was not any funding available pretty consistently across the whole state for new projects. So this intersection improvement today remains unfunded. So that kind of sets us up to prepare for P 7.0, which we anticipate we will be submitting projects beginning next summer. So we've still got about a year to plan what kind of scope we want to look at. So we do have a couple of options we wanted to go over. The first would be more of a corridor project. So either modernization or a road diet similar to the section of US 70 further west. And do a project between NC 9 and Pagettown Road. Or just look at multiple intersections. So just look at the 2 intersections that were proposed in the study. So both options would provide a clear transition from that higher speed multi-lane highway to a slower, more urbanized environment, and we believe would handle a variety of turning movements. The roundabouts obviously would encourage slower speeds, steadier speeds, and would reduce the stop and go traffic situation. Narrowing of US 70, as Steve mentioned, to a single lane in each direction, sort of between these 2 intersections, would be required between the proposed roundabouts for either one of these options. And sorry, clicker's not functioning well. So we recommend pursuing option 1, and specifically why we recommend option 1 is to connect to those adjacent planned multimodal projects that Steve covered earlier, and this would potentially close a gap in the bicycle and pedestrian network in the event that those 2 other projects are funded and in this section we do nothing. And I think during the prioritization process, like I said, it's going to be probably summer of next year before we talk about submitting projects to be evaluated in the process. The division can work with the MPO and the town staff to develop conceptual designs, so we can look at we can address the needs of the project in conceptual plans and get a good idea of what it would look like before it's actually funded. So that's all I had, or all we had. We're happy to address any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you, Hannah and Steve. Questions?
When, so it would be next year before the plans are submitted, is that correct?
Before the projects are submitted.
And I'm not up on all the acronyms, but when would the funding decisions then be made?
So prioritization is a 2-year process. We do it every 2 years, and then we use that to develop the next 10-year step. So if we submit projects in the summer of 2023, it'll likely be spring 2024 before the scores are released. When the scores are released, what we do is a draft version of the STIP is released for statewide mobility projects, which is the higher order. So basically our interstate facilities will be programmed in that tier. And then in spring of 2024, the local input point window will open. So the MPO, the division, will work with local governments to assign points on the projects that are their higher priorities. We have a very specific methodology that we have to get approved prior to the scores coming out, and we have to follow that process. But essentially, in spring of 2024, we anticipate the local input point process, and then likely the end of calendar year 2024, a draft STIP will be released. So it is a lengthy process, and there's public comment, and then the Board of Transportation approves it. So it's likely to be summer 2025 before we have our next adopted STIP, which is when, if we're successful, the funding would be allocated to this project.
What drives your score?
I'm sorry?
What is the mechanism for, used for getting a score?
So it's, the projects get submitted in like a GIS-based application, and there are all sorts of criteria that we look at safety data, we look at capacity data, we look at whether the project is going to have other modes of transportation incorporated into it, such as transit or bicycle and pedestrian. Drawing a blank, we look at access to rural parts of. We look at connectivity. We look at freight. So there are measurable congestion. Yeah, we look at metrics that are data-based, data that the DOT
Safety's a big
collects.
one,
Safety's a big one. Yeah, safety and congestion both are they're heavier weighted than some of the other criteria. But it's it's transparent, but it's very complicated. But I can share. I can't remember all the other ones, but it's been a couple years since we
Yeah,
looked
that's
at it. But yeah, we have metrics where we score them, and again, it's a data-driven process. So we let the data kind of reveal where our greater needs are, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
So, would you like just a little affirmation from council that option number one, or that's what you recommend? That is agreeable to council?
We just want to make sure, because we have 14 submittals that, we could spread them elsewhere in the division, and we
Right.
just want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with us using one of our submittals to pursue that scope and pursue funding
Right.
for that, a scope of that.
Well, I think it'd be wonderful, but council needs to weigh in, and if you don't ask any more questions, ask any questions you'd like to, but once you know what you know, which is probably pretty much what you've been told, I would entertain a motion to support option one as presented. Because it's a long process, but it'll
It
get
is.
started.
Yeah, I certainly think it's a great idea and would love to see that happen. So I would make that motion.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And opposed, no. Great, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate y'all coming out,
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
having us.
using a submittal bullet on us.
Yes.
All right, Josh, I think we're ready for the consent agenda.
We are. All right, your consent agenda consists of 3 items tonight. First one being adoption of minutes, May 26, 2022 special call meeting, May 19th, 2022 special call meeting, May 9th, 2022 regular session meeting, May 9th, 2022 closed session, and the May 5th, 2022 agenda meeting. Item 5B is a resolution of adjustment of small overpayment, underpayments, and minimum billing amount of property tax. This is to go along with our contract with Buncombe County, who does our property tax collection. This just mentions overpayments and underpayments in the amount of $5 or less that they're requiring us to have in our MOU. And then 5C is a resolution supporting reform of the room occupancy tax, and that'll be your consent agenda.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Josh?
Josh, can you briefly just review that room occupancy tax?
So the room occupancy tax, as this has been voted on by the county commission, I guess a month ago maybe.
Yeah,
or so.
yeah.
And so it's to change that distribution rate. Of course, this goes before the General Assembly, but to change the distribution rate on that room occupancy tax money from 75.25 to
66.
66.34. Yes,
33.
That works.
Oh, yeah, 34, yeah.
that's right, yeah. So, and it's changing it from the 75, the larger number is for marketing, the smaller number is essentially for, I guess, more project-oriented type funds. Is that
Right. Yeah, they want to get the project part expanded. You may remember the sports complex discussion. That's what that's about. And I think the bill is introduced in both Senate and House, I think. So, any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Does any member of the public wish to make public comment? We have no unfinished business, but on any matter of new business this evening. Hearing none, we would move on to new business A, sedimentation and erosion control text amendment.
I'll ask Planning Director Jessica Trotman to lead council and mayor through this one.
Good evening.
Mhm.
Our sedimentation and erosion control ordinance need a little bit of updating, and the revisions before you tonight more or less differentiate between grading as a standalone activity versus grading that occurs in relationship to building a house. So we're able to say, if you're just doing grading, we want it to be seeded within X amount of time. And so it's not left in a raw, muddy state to contribute sediment into our waterways. It also is more descriptive in the methods and that have to be implemented on a site. Instead of just saying there has to be site controls, it is more specific and discusses protecting your stormwater inlets. It also references the cross-section drawings published by the state for free on how to install and the standards for which these need to be installed too. So it's very easy for our building inspector or other staff to say, I'm on your site, and here's how that silt fence needs to be installed. And under certain situations, it may need to be 2 layers deep if you're on a steep slope or something to that effect. So it clears up a little confusion we had between those scenarios. We also reduced the area disturbed requiring a permit from 5,000 square feet to 1,000 square feet. And after talking to some other jurisdictions, this kind of gets us away. You don't need a grading permit if you're making a garden or if you're putting in a patio that weekend, but it really gets into site prep that has the potential to create those sediment issues. I want to point out in 8.1.2 applicability, section B, I left out a phrase and I apologize for that. So for your consideration, where it says permit shall be required for 1,000 square feet or more of land, it actually needs to say 1,000 square feet and less than 1 acre. That's how that should read. After it hits an acre, it goes to the county. The other revisions you'll find in there are just to reduce redundancies and to reference more current ordinances we have passed since this was last revised.
So say that again, what you intended to say there in B, A1, 2B.
Yes, permit shall be required whenever 1,000 square feet and less than 1 acre of land is disturbed.
Okay, great, thanks.
And that is your text amendment.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Jessica?
In 8.1.4 B5, the last, basically last.
Getting there, getting there.
The seating must be in place within 45 days of final grade.
Mm-hmm.
Are we actually going back and checking that, or is that if it's recorded or something like that?
No, well, there are a couple of methods. We will utilize a self-monitoring system that you can turn in and then it can be verified, but it's also something that our building inspector can lay eyes on.
Okay.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve and adopt ordinance 0-22-04 as presented with that one correction in 8.12 B.
So moved.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Great, thank you. Mr. Sneed, the lease proposal for Buncombe County regarding the Black Mountain Library.
Okay, this is a start on what this board asked several months ago, that we get whatever the agreement was 30-some years ago that was not signed, to see if we can get that updated and in writing and signed. And the county volunteered to do the first shot since they're doing this for a couple of other buildings that are not owned by the county. And what you got is sort of a plain Jane lease agreement. This doesn't project what they have planned or anything. It is a simple agreement where they get to use our property to operate a library, much the same as they've done for years. The loose end in here, and I sent to each of you my comments on this, is the loose end is a couple of wording things they probably didn't think through. It says we can use, as the owners of the building, you can use the building in any way that doesn't interfere with the use of the property for library purposes. But then it says parking shall be exclusively for library purposes. That needs to be cleaned up, of course. We have an education room or meeting room that's a little peculiar in that the library system has policies as to those, but those are not necessarily controlled by the library. Those are community rooms. It was built as a community room. It's available to anybody, quite often used by organizations that don't have a lot of money, like small homeowners associations, where they can meet and do their business. And there's a limit on use of it for making any money. You can't run your business out of that room. It's been used for a number of things over time. And I think some wording needs to go in there to recognize that peculiarity of it. We also have the green area out back, maybe parking area someday, but right now I think it has garden beds and a reading area for children. The reading area is obviously library related. The garden beds not necessarily not, but those things just need to be addressed in the agreement. I'm going to meet with the library board tomorrow night and to see mostly a few things need to be defined about what we're maintaining. This lease agreement says that the county will do the maintenance up to a certain point. We'll take over at the board, or the town will take over after that. That line's not divided, and that needs to be defined either by describing what they do or putting a dollar value on it, so we know where that line is. Because I will tell you, over the last 36 years, that's been very haphazard. There have been things that we would ask the county to do that we think they didn't think they would, and they did. And others we thought the county should, and they wouldn't. And I think it'd be nice to have that defined in this agreement. Councilman King raised a question about, and the library board I know has questions about, this doesn't go anywhere. There's no planning in this. And one of the things that strikes me as odd is it's a 1-year lease, no provision for renewal, no provision for termination. I think it probably needs to be written in some fashion where it's automatically renewable. It just renews so that you don't have to meet once a year and say, we'll do this again. And then terminal will be the party with some sort of given notice. The county will have no reason to terminate unless they build something different. And the town has no reason to throw them out unless we want to operate a library in town again. So I think it needs to at least roll forward even if it is 1-year lease. Or a longer term lease but with a termination provision. Those are the items that struck me. I'm sure I'll meet with the library board tomorrow night. They'll hit me in a handful more. That's all I've got to tell you on it so far. The county did look at the old language from the unsigned proposals from the 80s, the county's proposal, the town's proposal, and the county agreed that they'd been following the town's proposal for that agreement at that time. It's pretty much padded on that, missing some of the specifics.
So let me ask a question, Ron. And you're gonna meet with the library board, talk to the county, come back with maybe something to vote on next month or the month after?
Yeah, at least a better working draft. Talk to the library board and go back to the county and say these things have to happen
Right.
before our board can consider it.
So just looking at 9, section 9, structural additions, alterations, and changes, with the thought that the county had, you had discussed solar panels, and, you just can't give them now, that's what it amounts to, but,
Yeah.
They also discussed some other improvements in the building, but certainly there's structural changes, make the bathrooms ADA compliant, all that sort of thing. So, and looking at it, I don't see where there's an issue here, except I want number 9, I would like to see number 9 written with that in mind. Make sure it doesn't we just want it to work well for
Yeah,
everybody.
and I think you attempted that with some generic language that says that any of the structural changes had to be with their consent, but we can't unreasonably withhold
Right.
consent.
Right.
You're making those old bathrooms ADA, I don't think any kind of withholding of permission would
Right,
probably be
right.
unreasonable.
Right. Just that's really, I didn't see anything needing to be changed. I just wanted to mention it,
Yeah.
and make sure you had that in mind when you're talking to them. Anybody? Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have a question. I've said it at another meeting and wanted to get the council's opinion instead of just mine. you know, the county is contemplating major renovations on our library building. It's understandable they're gonna work on Swananoa and Oakley first, and I understand that, but we're on the calendar, on their project list for 2027, as it currently exists. And I guess, you know, we're talking, I have no idea how much money we're talking, but it'll be, I assume, a fair amount of money to bring it up to standards that they're looking at in that plan they presented. So I'm just wondering how long, it's hard for me to picture that they want to sink a lot of money into our library with a year-to-year lease. And it feels to me like we should at least verbally commit to a long-term, that we're willing to make a long-term commitment with this lease. Or it's not gonna be, why would they be willing to sink big money into it if it's a year-to-year lease? So I would be really interested in the council members' thoughts on how that should look.
Well, first of all, let me ask Mr. Sneed, what do you think?
And she's right. If I were the county, I wouldn't come out here and sink a couple $100,000 into it knowing you could terminate it in the end of the year. But this agreement is covering one problem to be fixed, and we're looking down the road. But this, perhaps as we present this, it could be accompanied by a resolution that the town is fully interested in entertaining a longer-term lease if major improvements are planned for this building, this property. Just let them know that we're committed.
Right,
I think that would be really helpful,
sounds good.
if we are.
I definitely.
Everybody's on board with that?
Yeah, I agree, because it's really sort of the county's problem, but we wouldn't want them to not fund it because they're worried about it either.
Several years ago, the county sunk close to a couple $100,000 into their building. And didn't ask a question about when we would throw them out, and didn't have a written lease. They're a nervy bunch. So I would think just a resolution or commitment that we would probably help.
Right.
That makes
We could,
sense.
we could do that at the same time we have the final document, and we approve it, and we'll roll it all into one meeting. How's that sound?
And may proceed if there's much discussion going on.
Right. Sound good? Everybody's on board with that?
Yeah.
So, anything else? Any other questions or comments?
My comment, you know, at one point when they had that big plan about relocating our library and combining it with Swananoa, they had a listening session here or last summer. It was very well attended and people were very upset. And my comment at that meeting, we need to, you know, there were all these ideas getting thrown around, and at the end I just said, you know, we have reasonable people running the town of Black Mountain, and we have reasonable people running Buncombe County. And I just have to believe that if we can get in the same room and figure this out, that we can come up with a solution that makes it a win-win for Black Mountain. And when the county's ready to do some major renovations, I'm thinking at a $0 or $2 to what you're talking about.
That was back in the good old days when things were cheap.
Yeah, that, you know, I still believe that we can work this out.
Great, thank you, Pam. Anyone else? Great, thank you, Ron.
So,
Golf course equipment.
So this is, bringing before you again, this happened back in October of last year. Council did vote on our golf equipment lease with Smith Turf and Irrigation. They have however been unable to fulfill that obligation. They have no idea when they're gonna get equipment. They know the price has increased, but they cannot give us what that's gonna look like. So we have chosen, the staff is recommending to go with Greenville Turf and Tractor. They have given us a price and can guarantee us that the equipment probably it's actually gonna be a few more months before we get it, but they actually have given us dates and dollar amounts. So staff would recommend that we go with Greenville Turf and Tractor. That original lease was going to be about $70,000. That has increased due to just the current state of affairs, to $92,000 per year for 5 years. And this is all your mowing equipment, all that specialized mowing equipment you need for a golf course.
Thank you, Josh. Questions for Josh on the lease? Got it in front of you. If there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the lease agreement as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So on to our public hearing.
If I may a moment, Mr. Mayor, as I advised the board in writing emails last week, I have a conflict on this because their firm is representing the applicant in this situation. I'm just gonna back out of the meeting and let you guys hold that part.
Right, thank you, appreciate it, Ron.
All right, so we were very familiar with these right-of-way closure activities that we see pretty often these days. If you're familiar with Cragmont Park, you have the park area, and then below it, the land below it, you could roughly divide it into 2/3 to the east being another town parcel, and to the west, some residential parcels are roughly 1/3. This right-of-way closure application exists between the town property of Cragmont Park and the property owner who is immediately below that right-of-way closure. The right-of-way is about 130 feet in length and about 42 feet wide. So in closing this right-of-way, which is not identified in any town plans for any needed improvements, the town will actually gain, 22, 21-ish feet, which can be used for whatever the town needs for the park. If the town needed a driveway at some point in the future, it could be a driveway. If it just is dedicated park space for grass, trees, or whatever, it can also be that. It can be whatever. The Parks and Recs director was in support of closing this right of way, and you all recently engaged an application to close the balance of this right of way, which would continue to add a dedicated space between the two parcels for the park's use. This was heard by the planning board at the regular meeting, and it was supported 4-1. And if you have any questions, I am happy to take them.
We will entertain a motion that we open the public hearing.
So
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Any member of the public wish to speak? If you do, just come up and Jessica will lend you
I'll
her
move.
chair.
Happy.
My opinion is not, well, I'm serve on the planning board, and I've argued that the town should not sacrifice their right to this right of way until the plan for the rest of Cragmont Park is completed. There's no reason for us to relinquish it. The owner suggests that the applicant suggests that he's just going to keep it the way it is, and Buckeye Street Extension is a natural entrance to Cragmont Park. The parking area that's proposed now is off-street parking next to the tennis courts. And we don't know what the final plan is for Cragmont Park because there is no plan for the back section, even though we have a Cragmont Park plan. It does not include that section. So I encourage the council to defer this until we have a final decision on that, because it would be a shame. Well, I should say that there's there are arguments that there's a driveway that comes in at an angle to that park, and it's not you don't want traffic to come at an angle. We're going to need parking in that park, and until we figure out how you're going to get traffic in and out, it doesn't make sense to me to give up this entitlement that we have to use that as a right-of-way. And so that's why I think it would be a mistake to approve that. Just one last comment, which is the Buckeye Street Extension. If that proves to be the entrance, it aligns with all the other street patterns And it does make sense, I believe, from a traffic control to have the traffic come in and out into a street that's opposite it instead of at an angle. So we don't know what it's going to look like. I think we might regret having that gone when the time comes for us to figure out what the back section of the park is going to look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Good, just come right up and say,
Go ahead.
Thanks, Bob. I'm Lee Redding. I serve as the chairman of the Recreation Commission, and I think it's important in this consideration of this right-of-way that we understand that this park land was purchased with land and water conservation funds, I think approximately 3 decades ago, with the specific intention of to be used as a town park. And most of you know that that south section of Cragmont Park was developed as a fire department training facility for years. Finally, they gave up that function. That facility was torn down. Now the town public works is using it as a materials dump, and they have been for several years. Most of the town, including the folks who serve on the Recreation Commission, did not understand that this history and that we actually have an opportunity to do some planning for what the community might want this south section of Cragmont Park to be. And there's some tremendous potential there for greenway connections, for active recreation, for neighborhood access into a wonderful park asset that we want to develop. But really the time, the opportunity to plan this has not been taken into consideration. Therefore, I support Sean's recommendation that you defer a decision right now until we have a plan in place for this property. Thank you.
Bob, you wish to make a comment?
Bob Watts, 130 Church Street. I'm always concerned when we close the right-of-way at the bottom of a valley that we lose sewer right-of-ways. And I know in several cases over the past years, we've closed things because nobody needed it. But, you know, that's going to be the one place for that community for their sewer line to come down through there. There may be one now, but it's something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. No public hearing now. Does anyone else wish to speak? All right, I'd entertain a motion that we go out of our public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. So now, council members, questions for Jessica? And Jessica, what you might do is just lead off by responding to
That's
some of our
probably
public
the
comments.
easiest
because
thing to
I think
do.
that'll probably help council.
There is a sewer line running through there, so there is MSD easement straight through there. First, I want to reiterate that the Parks and Rec Director submitted a letter of support to this application to close this. I also want to reiterate that a closing the right-of-way does not preclude the town from using it for such thing as parking, driveway access, if such planning showed a demand for that. Closing this right-of-way does not stop the town from continuing Phase 2 of Cragmont Park's connection, which we proposed in this year's budget. It also gives us more control. When this property, the lower parcel, was purchased with particular funds, you didn't purchase the right-of-way. That's between this. That does not influence the use of this. You actually gain more property that the town controls. And creating a parking lot on a right-of-way, you would have to close it and create that. The town takes ownership of a platted right-of-way through the development of a public road, not through the development of a parking lot. So I hear all of these concerns, but I do not think that the closure of this right-of-way actually prevents any of these things from happening.
Council?
Jessica, can I ask a question on the plat that's attached?
Yes.
Who owns, and it's shaded there, 8675?
86. Oh, that's us.
And who owns 9132?
We do. And so I think it's at next month's meeting or the month after that, we will have another public hearing to respond to the town's request to close the balance of this in order to create, to bring that property line to the center of that.
Got it.
If I remember correctly, and it would be in a previous agenda packet, but closing the balance of this right-of-way in addition to closing it, receiving half of this proposed right-of-way gives this park close to half an acre.
And the width of the platted right-of-way currently is what?
It's about 42 feet.
So we'd gain 21.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
When it's closed,
Mm-hmm.
what, or I guess when it's open,
Yes.
what limitations do we have on what we can do with that space?
Utilities can run through it, more or less.
So if we were to say build a driveway into a parking area or something like that that did come in, did extend from Buckeye Street, would that be permissible? Would we have to close it first and then?
I think
do
you
that?
might have to make it a public road, or you would have to close it and create your facility. I think that if the town wanted to close this right of way and use it for some other purpose, you would still only gain the 21 feet.
Sure. But so
Unless
if
you
we
bought
were
the balance.
so if we were to make a public road, could we make a public road? You know, I mean, I'm just speaking in hypothetics here.
Sure.
But if the parking lot was, say, in the part that's not shaded in, the part we're discussing to close
Mm-hmm.
next week, and we needed that access directly from Buckeye, or
Mhm.
that made sense.
Uh-huh.
Could a public road end in the middle of a right of way right there like that? Just like barely
It would
extend?
depend on if you're making a road or if you're making a driveway. They're just different construction standards and capacities. And closing that, you would still be able to use the existing, what you gain, as town property,
Mhm.
as a driveway. It would just be shifted up north by 20 feet, if you still wanted to use that.
I have a suggestion.
Mhm.
If we approve or go along with the planning board's recommendation,
Mhm.
how does it affect MSD? Or would it-
MSD has its sewer easement, which I think through this area, when I called to check, was 10 feet on each side of the line.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution R-22-15 as presented.
Thank you, Bill. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
So I believe with that, we are on to Josh, anything that you'd like to report?
Sure, so, Park Rhythms, first Park Rhythms is this Thursday, 7 o'clock at Edgewood Park. Hope to see you there, and we will be closed Friday celebrating Juneteenth, this Friday.
Friday.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought the federal holiday was Monday.
It
It
is,
is.
the county went with
We
Friday.
followed,
Oh,
we
okay.
followed the county schedule.
I gotcha.
Friday.
I like taking Friday off too.
And that's it for me.
Very good. Mr. Sneed?
Just one thing, those who've seen my emails have seen the tail on the bottom of it that says I'm retiring in about 2 weeks. It says I'll be doing other limited activities. I do intend to keep up my municipal practice for a while, unless you fire me. The only difference is maybe I'll start attending in jeans and t-shirt rather than a suit.
We'll let you know if that bothers you.
I'll stay with you.
All right, thank you. Council,
I'd like to remind everybody about our budget hearing, right, which is the
June 28th.
June 28th, 5 o'clock PM. We'll be discussing and voting on the budget. I also, I know Josh Henderson isn't here, but I've had the privilege to attend the Empty Bowls event at the community garden this past weekend, and I would just every time I go to the community garden, I'm reminded of what a good resource it is for the community and how much a good service to the community. And I'm grateful for the Parks Department and everyone involved in the community garden for their work on that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was there, council member Tiller and King, so we had a quorum. If you want to post that, then there's no business discussed. Did you post it? Did you? Good.
In our tea party attire, it said, wear your tea party attire, and I didn't know what that meant.
I haven't been to a tea party in a while, so.
I'm pretty sure I don't own it.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
I have one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to draw the community's attention to the Black Mountain Community Connect program from the fire department. You all sent out messages today, I know, on social media, and it's on our website, the town website. You go to the menu and it says residents, and then there's a list of things, and the last one is Community Connect. And it's a wonderful program, so it's secure. You provide them information about your home, maybe about your pets or whatever you want them to know in the case of an emergency. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew it was available. It's free and seems to me like a wonderful thing for our residents to have available.
Great, thank you for mentioning that. Anyone else? All right, then I would entertain a motion that we go into closed session to discuss matters not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes, and to consult with the town attorneys as permitted by North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 143-318.11A3.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.